Commodore fans, are you ready? It's time for another episode of the Vandy247 podcast on the 440 Sports Network. Keep it locked right here for the best Vanderbilt coverage. Whether it's Clark Lee on the gridiron, Mark Byington and Shea Ralph on the hardwood, or Tim Corbin on the diamond, the Vandy247 crew has you covered. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Also, like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's free and easy to do. Follow the crew on Twitter, Apple Podcast, and Spotify for podcast episodes. Lastly, if you're interested in sponsoring the show, email Chris Lee at chrislee70@gmail.com. And now, pull up a chair. It's time for another episode of the Vandy247 podcast.
Welcome into Vandy 24/7 Live alongside Luke Wyatt. I'm your host, Billy Derrick, on a beautiful Wednesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We got a lot to get to today. It's going to be all baseball. Not a whole lot. Everything's calmed down outside of baseball for the most part. I've got some football recruiting, but for the most part, we've touched on a lot of that. The basketball roster is set, so we'll probably touch on a little bit of the finalized roster. But for the most part, it's baseball, and we got a lot of good stuff to get into with baseball after the weekend. Before we do, though, I want to tell you about our baseball sponsor, Sanders Moving. Our baseball coverage all season brought to you by Sanders Moving, leaders among moving companies in Nashville and the surrounding area. Their team of professional movers are focused on delivering efficient, hassle-free moving at an affordable price. Whether you're moving across town or across the country, Sanders Moving has you covered. Visit them at tedrsandersmoving.com. Luke, you didn't have a good weekend, did you?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. Friday night wasn't great, but after that, it got to be really interesting, and it was a weekend that we had to have to put ourselves in a quote catbird seat to where if we win 2 out of 3 this weekend, all the things that we were hoping for Vanderbilt baseball could come true.
Yeah, you mentioned Friday night. Liam Doyle shoved, and Tennessee did what Tennessee does typically on a lot of Friday nights. It's a low-scoring game. They win 3-2. Hunter Ensley was huge in that one with a couple of big catches and had a slide at home plate that was clutch. But you turn around Saturday, Vandy runs all over. They jump all over Marcus Phillips, and they end up holding on there. It had a couple of home runs back-to-back there in the late innings, but Vanderbilt held on for a 10-6 win. And then Sunday, that was, the tension late in that one. I know throughout the game, you felt good if you're Vanderbilt, especially after a couple of Colin Barzy home runs. But Tennessee cuts into the lead late. They get bases loaded late in that one, and one swing of the bat wins the game. And we're talking a lot differently about this weekend. But Vandy holds on, really courtesy of Ethan McIlvain those last couple innings, especially the last 3 pitches. And we're going to get into it throughout the episode. Vandy wins Sunday 7-5. They've got Kentucky this weekend. It's actually Thursday through Saturday. They'll play 6 o'clock tomorrow, and then 6 o'clock on Friday, and then 2 o'clock on Saturday. So senior week, of course. And Luke, I need to take a look at the roster to even look at. It's so hard to keep track of nowadays, like who's coming back and who's already graduated. But you look at the class. Tommy O'Rourke is a graduate, a grad transfer. Jacob Humphreys is a senior. Jonathan Vastine is a senior. Ryan Ginther, J.D. Rogers, and Sawyer Hawks are all seniors. But again, you never know who has eligibility left and who's actually leaving. So it'll be interesting to see, because sometimes you think a guy's being honored, and when he's not. They've decided that he's coming back, and some certain players do come back. So, Luke, let's get into it. And again, all of our baseball coverage brought to you by Sanders Moving. I want to get your take on just how this team responded, because Friday night was disappointing, but I didn't feel like Vanderbilt was out of the series by any means. And I honestly came away Friday night saying, man, Vandy was really close and very easily could have won that, and we could be talking about a sweep this weekend. So how did you feel like they responded from Friday night, but also responding from the weather delay, responding from the atmosphere, responding from Andrew Fisher's antics on Sunday early? I mean, all this team did was respond all weekend.
Well, I think Coach Corbin alluded to it on his Friday or his Sunday press conference with you guys when he said this team aged 10 years. I think you may have asked the question, and that's what you say. In the past, they had that 2-year run where they dominated us, 22 and 23. They won 6, and they won a couple in the SEC tournament. But as you know, Vanderbilt baseball at those 2 years was not what Vanderbilt baseball were used to. They had just come off of the 21 World Series, playing in the championship game and losing Mississippi State. So they were kind of rebuilding, so to speak. And Tim was feeling his way through this new era of baseball with portal and NIL. So they took it to us during that time and maybe intimidated us a little bit up in Knoxville. As you know, and you experienced it this weekend, that place is different than most families. And it's just, I'll stop right there. But anyway, I felt like Tim said, nothing seemed to bother these guys. When we hit a home run, we just ran the bases. When they hit a home run, they're going to cuss the pitcher, cuss Vastine, cuss our dugout, whatever. It's just they follow their leader, and that's the way it is. And I think our kids responded great. They never fought back as far as acting, getting on the level that they were. Barzy had a couple of words for Fisher as he crossed home plate, which is fine with me. I don't have a problem with that. I just felt like they handled, like you said, they handled the adversity, and it never bothered them. They never flinched the whole weekend.
Yeah, it just dawned on me on Sunday, because that was a 5-6 hour marathon. The game started at 3. I forget when the delay happened, but it's a 2-hour delay. And that game didn't end, I think, 9 Eastern, 8:30 Eastern, something like that. So that was a long day for everybody. And there was a point in the booth up there where I'm like, these coaches, this has got to be just mind-numbing for these coaches. And I thought about Corbin, at his age, but also Vitello this season. Like, this season has got to – I told somebody, I was like, Vitello might have developed a few gray hairs this year just with everything going on, and Corbin knows what seasons like this are like. And really, it's the first season Vitello's experienced a season like this. But it just dawned on me on Sunday. It's like this team had to have grown up a lot throughout this weekend. Friday happens. You go down 0-1 in the series. You respond Saturday. They just jumped on them. And you felt like Vandy had the momentum, especially with Fennell going on Sunday. But Fennell really didn't pitch. He didn't pitch bad. But it wasn't your normal Fennell start where he gives you 6 or 7, and he really has hitters off balance, and then you can roll into the pen with McIlvain or Hawks in the 8th and 9th. But Fennell he only gave you 3, I think, wasn't it, Luke?
That's right.
And Tennessee did well to get him. That was a win for them to get him out of the game. But everything that happened, whether it's the atmosphere like you talk about, being there for the first time this weekend. I can't imagine what it's like for road players to play there. And maybe it's just me I don't travel a lot for these road series, so I can't imagine what LSU is like and what Mississippi State and Ole Miss. Ole Miss was probably another really good atmosphere. But Tennessee is similar to Hawkins Field. It's very tight. It's a confined space, and the fans are really right on top of you, especially out there in the porches in left field, and then the student section down the line. But number one, for them to battle through the atmosphere and win and cut through all the noise. They hadn't won a series in Knoxville since 2021. And there's just it's hard to do. And no matter what team Tony Vitello in Tennessee has, it's hard to go there and win. I know Auburn's done it this year. I know Kentucky's done it this year. And that probably helped give Vandy some confidence, Luke. But for them to cut through all the noise and all the distractions of Lindsey Nelson Stadium, but also, like you said, to stay composed, to stay focused. I thought that's the talking point of the weekend. You had what happened with Andrew Fisher early. I don't know why he's doing that. That's the last thing you want to do, especially to a team like Vandy that can and will respond. We've seen them respond this season, and that's why you get what you get after the game. Vandy's talking, and again, I'm not even sure why Tennessee just walk off the field. Like I don't really get why they continue to, but it's a rivalry. You knew something was going to happen, and there was jawing and chipping all weekend. But I just knew they grew up, Luke, and I knew Corbin was going to like that question. And the 10-year thing, there's always games like this throughout a season where you feel your team growing up. If you're Tim Corbin, this had to have been one of them. And man, that felt like a super regional really all weekend. Not even a region. I mean, that there were some tense moments, and not every team gets to go through those. I think it's going to help Vanderbilt in the long run. Not that they may host a regional. Well, they will host a regional. They may host a super regional too, Luke. So they may not have to. But if they get to Omaha, this is a weekend that would really, really help them. To me, Luke, they stayed composed, and not surprising from a Tim Corbin coach team that they were able to do that.
Right. And you talked about they hadn't won there since 21. Well, I mean, they've only played them twice up there. So they really actually won 2 of the last 3 times they've been up there.
Right.
They won in 21. They won this year. So it's really only been 1 year, 2030, that Tennessee up there. So look, it's a clash of 2 different cultures. There's no question about that. You can have your kids, and the kids take the personality of the coach, and we saw the evidence of that all weekend long. I don't think, again, we never flinched at all of their shenanigans, all the stuff from the fans, and you have to understand, Billy, I've been there. I've been up there 20 times when I worked at Vanderbilt, and I've been to every SEC ballpark except for the 2 new teams, Oklahoma and Texas, and there's the only place that acts like that. Now, I don't know whether it's a thing that they just feel like they need to do that against Vanderbilt. I don't know. I really don't know. Now, some of those kids know each other because they play against each other, play in travel ball and that type of thing. So maybe there's some more of that we don't know, some personal stuff. But, again, you can just tell who coaches who. And, you go back to the Auburn weekend, the way Coach Vitello got thrown out, acting the way he acts at Auburn. It's just the 2 different cultures.
It was evident. It was very evident, especially on Sunday. And that was so classic. Colin Barzey, like you said, had a little bit to say to Fisher, as he's walking to the dugout. And I was a little surprised. Like, typically Vanderbilt players are more reserved and not very braggadocious or whatever you want to call it. But Brody Johnson stepped up. It looked like he was about to. He wasn't. I mean, I was a little worried for a second. I thought Brody was about to throw hands, and then he rounds third, and Barzey had a little bit to say about him or say to him. But even that little moment there, it's not like Vanderbilt just, that didn't faze them.
No,
I think in years past, last year it might have fazed them, and even the year before it, they have gotten past the bully aspect of Tennessee. And they said it, I think Mancini said it after the game. Joey actually talked to him on an exclusive, and Mancini said we knew they were going to try to bully us. We weren't going to let that happen. And you saw a couple of times Curley with a couple of tags like that don't happen. I mean, look, he's not going to, they weren't going to reverse any of those calls. And the Nelson one, I wasn't really worried about the Nelson one. That wasn't a great slide from Riley Nelson. But one of the Rigdon ones, he shoved his leg off the bag, and he might have gotten him on the initial tag anyway. It was a really close play. But, if he would have made it to the bag, would they have called that? Because he did get pushed off. He pushed his leg off. So it's the fact that they were able to push through, like we talked about, was really impressive. They matured a lot. But, it's just like you said, it is what it is when you play up there. But it feels like they've gotten past a lot of the mental hurdles that existed the last couple of years. I mean, let's face it. I mentioned a game 2 to Joey a couple of years ago in Knoxville. They lost 17-1, and sitting there going, "What in the world? What in the world's happening?" With this team or with this rivalry. But you could see it in the coach's eyes. You could see it in the players' eyes all weekend, Luke, that they weren't going to be denied. And I want to mention Ethan McIlvain too, as a Tennessee kid, to go up there on Sunday and pitch the way he did. I know he loaded the bases, and I can't imagine what that dugout was feeling and that Vanderbilt dugout was feeling. I know you were probably shaking in your boots, Luke, and as every Vanderbilt fan probably was in that moment. But for him to push through there too, I give him the MVP of the weekend. I don't think they win it without him. There's a lot of other players that you can talk about, but man, McIlvain stepped up.
Well, the thing with McIlvain, you have to go back to the MTSU game. Probably the lowest point of Vanderbilt baseball this season was losing that midweek to MTSU. But in that game, Ethan McIlvain came in and pitched 2 tremendous innings. And I said, man, if he's turned a corner here, that's going to be huge for us. I even mentioned it on the podcast. And luckily, it's been so far, knock on wood, it's been the case. Ethan, his was between his ears, all of his problems. And looks like he's matured as time has gone on. He's figured out his role. He fits better right now as a closer or a late bridge reliever. And, that's fine, whatever it takes. But Ethan, in that situation, the only reason you worry is the ballpark you're in, to me, because it's so small that if you just pop a fly ball to right field, it's out of that phone booth in a heartbeat. That's how you can get beat there. That's what they play in up there, and they play to that. I get it. But that's the only reason I was worried. But now he did a great job elevating that fastball on Peebles and got out of it with no damage at all. To me, I want to mention this while it's on my mind. The biggest play in the game was after the 2-hour rain delay. Jonathan Vastine steps up and hits a home run to give us a 2-run cushion. I think that was also one of the biggest plays of the weekend.
I agree. Mancini's too there to give a cushion, a 2-run cushion as opposed to a 1-run cushion is huge for a pitcher. McIlvain talked about that after the game. Obviously, we know about Barzy's home runs, and after the game too on Sunday, Barzy said, "I wish I could play here every game." And I
still would.
Yeah, I started thinking because Vitello, the way he is, he may try to go after old Barzy with how he plays in that park. But no. That's the thing about that park, and I told somebody this was a big talking point up in the booth with some of the Tennessee beat writers too, and a lot of what they were saying was Tennessee's opponents this year when they come into Lindsey Nelson, they're more confident because of the lack of dominant pitching. Now Tennessee's pitching staff, I think, is still pretty good. They've got talent, but I think a lot of what they're dealing with is they're feeling the pressure because Tennessee's bats aren't what they've been. And so I think opponents, especially Vanderbilt, a guy like Barzy who's built for that short porch and right. And somebody put this on Twitter. I think it was Jerry Lawless, the difference between Hawkins Field and the 360 in right. It's a straight line basically in right field for Tennessee. It's 320 down the line and then 360 basically up until center field. And it is, players love hitting there, especially big power lefties. That's why Fisher has 20 home runs. But for Barzy and even guys, even some lefties like a Vastine who he's up close to 10 home runs. But for Mancini, first home run in SEC play for even him to go yard, like this could be a big confidence boost for this team. But you're right, Luke. That park hitters love playing there. But huge weekend for this team, and we've got a ton of mailbag questions, so I want to go ahead and roll into some of those before we waste any more time. Again, our mailbag brought to you by Sutherland and Belk, sponsoring the chat room and today's mailbag. Again, the chat room's open. Fire away any comments or questions you've got. I know we got a couple so far, but if you or a loved one has been hurt or in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call at 615-846-6200 to learn about your rights and whether they can help. Our guest line, Mr. Luke Wyatt, brought to you by John Levin, good friend of the show, Wobble Bond Dickinson. They thank the student athletes at Vanderbilt University for their dedication, effort, and hard work. Guest line also brought to you by Yeaman Packaging Systems, leaders in end-of-line packaging automation. All right, from Vandy fan 615, what do you make of Tennessee's continued ridiculous behavior on the field? It looks bad enough when they are winning. It looks really, really bad when they are losing. Yeah, Luke, to me, again, we've talked about it, the Andrew Fisher antics. I didn't really see the point of that. That's the way they motivate themselves, though. That's how they fire themselves up. That's how they draw energy. That's how it's been, and that's how Vitello draws energy. He's an emotional guy. You see when the camera pans to him in the dugout a couple of times throughout the weekend. I think he sits down. He's always moving. He's a very I don't know, jittery guy. And he's quick to react. He's emotional. And I think that's why he probably has an older guy like Frank Anderson on staff. And a lot of the other coaches are low key to, like Elander. You'd never really see him, get fired up at all, really. So that probably helps. But like you said, they play off of their coach. That's how they've drawn energy over the years. And look, I'm not saying Fisher should have been ejected. I think it was good they got warnings, but and also I think it was Saturday, the camera panned over to Vitello and he gave Sawyer Hawks a few of his choice words, and I was wondering why, like where did that come from? But sometimes there's not a reason. That's what they do, Luke, and I know I know you've voiced your opinions on this.
Well, I'll be glad to voice my opinion, and not to. I'm trying to choose my words carefully. Look, Tony Vitello is who he is. It's like a petulant child. When things don't go his way, he's going to get all excited. He's going to blame an umpire. It's never his fault. Going to blame the opposition. When a coach cusses opposing player, he's lost all respect to me, and that's what he did to Sawyer Hawks. I'm a lip reader, and I could tell what he said to him. That's so beneath anything. Why anyone would let their child play for him, I have no idea. There's too many other choices. You can call it emotional or whatever, but you have to control that. You're the leader of the ship. And if you act like a fool, your players are going to act like a fool because they know there's not going to be that. He encourages it. He doesn't care that they do it. He made a statement. I don't know if you looked at his post-game conference, but he made a statement, and this is almost verbatim. He said, because someone asked him about that, and he said, well, I don't mind my players talking. It doesn't bother me. He goes, if the people in the stands can talk and people on social media can talk, then why can't the players talk to each other? Well, now, that's supposedly an adult leading a bunch of young men saying that. So that right there, he loses me right there. I don't care if he coaches at Tennessee or at Guam Tech. It doesn't matter. He shouldn't be the leader of men, and that's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, and I think a lot of what Tennessee people were saying was, well, Fennell was quick pitching, and I was like, I don't really. That's how he's pitched all year. Like,
either legal or it's not. You got 4 umpires right there, so
right.
Either you can do it or you can't.
Right, and Corbin, after Fisher, he was talking to the umpire after a couple other moments where, and then Vitello would come out, but I was surprised nothing escalated to the level of Vitello running out onto the field. I was a little surprised. Now maybe Vitello has grown a little bit, but at the same time, the players are still conducting themselves the way they have. And now that they're losing, it does. I'm with the guy that just asked that question. It does look really bad. It's a tough look, but they've done it to themselves.
Yeah.
Good question though.
It's when the bully on the block gets punched in the nose, and then they have to walk off with their hand, nose bleeding. That's what it was. They got punched in the nose.
Yeah, and look, I after the game, the way Vandy's talking, I don't think anybody has a problem with that. That happens after just about every rivalry series win. Yep. And Hunter Ensley, he's got to talk. And I saw one Tennessee player come up. He was about to do the Hulk smash on one of the Vandy. I was like, oh my gosh. But
I guess Walker Gasanti up there, I guess.
Yeah. But no, I didn't think it was going to get worse than what happened. And then the Vandy players were letting the Tennessee fans have it. And Lindsey Nelson and as they should have. I mean, Vandy deserved to say maybe not whatever they wanted to say, but say a lot, and they did. And Jacob Humphrey was he was prevalent. I'll say that. And another guy was obviously Brody Johnson. He ran up. He was eager. He wasn't going to back down from anything. And I think guys like that, Brody and Rustin Rigdon, he stepped up in some big moments throughout the weekend. Obviously, Ethan McIlvain, England Bryan too. Like, there's a lot of guys we haven't talked about yet. But obviously, a lot of the in-state kids, were motivated this weekend. Steve VU98, are there not sportsmanship taunting rules in baseball? If so, why aren't the umpires enforcing them?
I think it's because it makes good TV. It's like the home run thing. When you have a rule that if the pitcher gets caught using foreign substance, it's a 3-game suspension. But if you get caught with an illegal bat, the batter's out, and that's all there is to it. That tells you right there they want to see high-scoring home run games and all that stuff. It's the same thing. They think it's good television.
Yeah, there's so many unwritten rules in baseball. I don't know how, like, as an umpire, like after an Andrew Fisher type thing, how do you, like?
I'm sorry. It's his judgment. There's no rule. It's like a judgment call. If he thinks it's over the top and that the kid shouldn't have done it, and in his eyes, he sees it as this guy's instigating something, then you give him one warning. First of all, the only thing I have a problem with on all of that, the warning should have gone to Tennessee, not both teams, because we didn't say anything until Barsey, when he crossed the plate, Barsey kind of waved him like, get in the dugout. That's all that was said by Barsey. You could tell. He just waved him toward the dugout. Now, the umpire should have warned them because they started it. If you don't stop what instigates something like that, then you're not being fair to the other team because we didn't do anything. So, that's the kind of thing. And an umpire could have really put a stop to it and said, hey, one more word, you're out of the game. One more word, Vitello's out of the game. And that'll shut them up. If it doesn't, then they're ejected.
I think I just thought of this too, the Drew Gilbert situation against Notre Dame. I think it was game 1.
And Jordan Beck.
Yeah. Did they eject? They didn't eject Jordan Beck after the. Okay.
No, flipped off the crowd. Yeah, no. Mm-hmm.
Well, that wasn't as clear. Like if you do it at home plate, Gilbert. I mean, I was a little surprised the umpire tossed him, but at the same time, I wasn't, because you can't do that. You can't like publicly, berate. And we don't know. I'm sure we know what he said, but that's a judgment call too. But a lot of umpires probably would have ejected him. That's probably the line. With Andrew Fisher, it's as he's rounding the bases. Now, if he were to have said something to Barsey or said something over to Corbin directly, like right at home plate, maybe there's an ejection. But, that's a judgment call, like you said.
Billy, chirping goes on, period. But
Right.
If you notice things that get to this level, there's always one common denominator, and they wear orange.
You're right. I mean, think about it. The Auburn series.
No.
It happened a little bit in the LSU series.
Happened at Arkansas a couple of years. This has been going on. This is his 8th year. It's been going on since they started getting better, and the bully came out in him. It revealed his character.
Well, and I don't want to say the book is out per se, but the gig is up a little bit. Like now that Tennessee is having their first real down year. And I guess they had a down year a couple of years ago, but people are not, this isn't really the villain bully type. This is just kind of laughable at this point. Like, what are you still doing? Yeah. Okay. Vandy fan Pate, what is the best and worst case scenario for the Vandy boys heading into the UK game SEC tournament as far as NCAA seeding? Best case, you sweep them. I mean, I think, but you get 2 out of 3. That's still best case. But if you sweep them, Luke, and then SEC tournament, at that point it doesn't matter really what you do in the SEC tournament. But if you win a 1 or 2 in the SEC tournament, you're a top 3-4 seed. You're top 4 seed. And metric wise, Vandy is you could argue right now a top 3-4 seed if they go by the metrics, and the committee, that's what they might do. I mean, you can't tell me the committee with a bunch of ADs, sitting around watching college baseball all weekend. And they probably watch more SEC than anything. But I think best case, Luke, you win the series this weekend, and the SEC tournament doesn't really matter. And you're hosting a regional, you're hosting a super, you're a top 8 seed.
Yep. No, if you win 2, you're top 8. If you win 1, you're putting yourself on that 8-9 slot. could go either way. It's going to depend on what other teams do if you only win one. Now, if you get swept, you're still going to host, but you're just going to host a regional. You won't get a super. So we still got a lot of big baseball in front of us this weekend. But like you said, if the season ended today, we'd be a top 5 seed.
Yep. Yeah, and that's where they're at, according to D1Baseball.com, number 5 overall national seed. And they have them with Louisville as the 2, ETSU as the 3, Tennessee Tech as the 4, and they're paired with 12 seed Oregon State, who they've seen in a super before. Now that these projections, especially still 2 weeks out,
right?
It's not going to happen in that exact way. I could see Louisville coming to Nashville very easily. I think it's obviously good that Vandy's already seen them, but we'll get into that when that happens. Vandy, Mark, what do the media and the SEC that cover baseball think of Vitello? It's kind of funny because, look, I'll say this: the guy has a national title. I think he's a great coach. He has his own style. You may not like it, but there are players, there are kids in high school that like it. It's a little bit of the Bryce Harper, the Tatis, the kind of that new age of baseball where you've got 3 wristbands on. You're talking trash. You're having fun. Now there's a line there. So I think there's other people that, like you've said, Luke, that would never want to play for that. But he does have a national title. So I think there's a respect factor. But I think there's a lot of media that could do without some of the antics and look, there's a lot that's changed. I believe it or not, he's mellowed a little bit. I mean, go back a couple of years ago, I think it was 2022, the Alabama series, chest bumped an umpire. We've seen him get ejected from games. You go back to the Auburn series, just last week, just a couple of weekends ago, talks to every umpire. That's his style. And there aren't many coaches like that. I know most Vandy people don't like it, but the media, Luke, the media is different than the fan perception. I think there's a respect factor in the media, but there's also, I know of some media members that could do without it. But that's what I'll say there. J.R. Hershey, let's see, that's a basketball question. Let me see if there's any more baseball questions. From Vandy Fan 1992, is Connor Fennell's recent struggles in his last outings an indicator that he was a flash in the pan anomaly, or is he still a force that will challenge good teams on the mound? I think that's a good question.
No, I think this. I think Connor, especially. All right, let's go to the Tennessee series. He pitched 3 innings, 71 pitches, but they fouled off 24 pitches. So you give Tennessee the credit there for running his pitch count up. Connor is all about location. If he doesn't get his location just right, he doesn't have a lot of speed. He's up around 90 with his fastball, but it's locating and landing the breaking stuff that is the key to Connor Fennell. And the frustration of, okay, sometimes he'll pitch right as soon as you turn your face toward him at the ball. He's getting ready to let go of the ball. And sometimes he'll wait till there's 9 seconds and then he'll throw it. So he can kind of get you off stride. So I think that's just it. Getting your timing off is the key to Connor Fennell. But when he makes a mistake, it's a problem because he doesn't have a lot of velocity.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. The pitch count was the issue there, and give credit to Tennessee. I think that's probably a blueprint for other teams. I'm sure Kentucky's going to be tough against Fennell. I think that's a good aggressive contact hitting team. They'll bunt probably, but I think Fennell will be fine. He's such a competitor too. He was not happy when he left the game. Luckily, Vanderbilt was able to piece it together with the bullpen there late. Speaking of Kentucky, we got a Kentucky fan in here. Glad to see a series against Kentucky. Both teams respect each other, and hopefully my Bat Cats can get just one win. For Kentucky, they need to just get one. So, but I mean, that would be huge for them if they do get the win. Max on YouTube, how they manage not to return punches to the face at second base is beyond me. I also thought, I kind of agree with that too, because Dean Curley was right in front of Rigdon there and is kind of, smiling and laughing a little bit after that. I thought there could be something there, but again, credit to Rigdon for maintaining composure. And Max says huge bonus points for not clobbering that second base. That's a good point there. Joe, last baseball question here. Why hasn't Ryan Ginther been getting innings? I think we hit on this last week, or I think Chris and I hit on this last week, Luke. I'm a little confused by that too. I think you have guys like Huseman that have stepped up. Like, you bring in a freshman England Bryan who's been good. McIlvain with what he's been able to do. I hate to say that I think he's been passed up, but that's kind of what it looks like. He hasn't pitched as much as he did last year, but last year was a different bullpen. They've brought in some new guys. I think Sawyer Hawks has probably taken some innings from him. But, look, you still got him. He's still there. He just hasn't pitched as much.
Yeah, and you never know. Once you get into a regional, you're going to need somebody to step up that hasn't done a lot throughout the year, and that's happened at Vanderbilt a lot and a lot of places. You just don't, if you have the right attitude, and I know it would be tough on Ryan because he's been such an integral part in the past, but if his attitude is correct, he'll probably get another opportunity here soon.
I lied. One more baseball question. This is outside of just Vanderbilt, though. Vandy Mark asks, who will be the next coach at Mississippi State? A close friend says it will be Nick Mingione from Kentucky. Speaking of Kentucky, I think that'd be a great hire. I don't know what's going to happen, Luke, and for all we know, they could already know. They could have already talked to Mingione and have agreed on something. But, that's a big hire for them, and I'll be interested to see who they bring in.
I think Mississippi State obviously is a great baseball school. Of their three major sports, baseball actually is their bell cow, and they have a wonderful stadium, a great fan base, and all that. So it's a good job, and I don't know money-wise what they'll pay for a head coach, how far they'll go, but I would think they're going to reach out to someone like a Nick Mingione. That would not surprise me at all if he wound up there.
Okay, we've got an overarching question here from JD Dorr. What do you feel are the most impactful storylines in each major sport this week? Obviously, baseball, you beat your in-state rival over the weekend and get a huge series win. That's it for baseball. For football, they've gotten some more commits, Luke. I know they got a commitment from a 3-star wide receiver, Caden Smith, and Darrell Campbell is also a guy that has he committed, Luke?
Yes.
Okay, Darrell. Yeah.
To me, it's the fact that how much depth we've improved on the defensive and offensive line. That's the story to me in the last few weeks because we are 2 deep, knock on wood, at every position on the D line, and some of them are 3 deep with guys that you don't mind. It's not like you're putting him in just to get a series. You feel good about what he can do to help you while he's in there. I don't ever remember us being that deep on the line of scrimmage.
I'm with you. The D-line depth is definitely a story. Even the offensive line depth too, bringing in some other offensive linemen. In basketball, I think the story is you finalized your roster. You brought in Oklahoma transfer Duke Miles from the SEC. His last couple months have been crazy. He committed to Virginia, then decommitted, then was committed to A&M, and he heard some rumors about a Tennessee visit that was canceled, and he ends up committing to Vandy. But he's a good player, and the roster has been finalized. So for basketball, we'll have plenty of time to take a look at the roster and analyze that before the season. But Duke Miles coming in for basketball, that's a big storyline. Do you expect any news to come out of women's basketball this upcoming week? Not as locked in. Maybe we'll get Elena Morris to give us an update there. But you get Blake's back, you get Camille Pierre back. I know there's a big potential high school recruit that was on campus, I want to say over the weekend, that would be huge to get. No news there yet. I know they feel good about that, but that's what we've got on the women's side of things.
One other thing about the women's basketball, one of the biggest keys, and she's been gone for a year, is getting Sasha Washington back. Because one of the things where when we didn't play well was rebounding. And Sasha, even though she's only 6'1", can rebound with girls that are 6'4" and 6'5".
Yeah, that's big as well. We got a good question here from J.R. Hershey. Can you project an early look starting 5 plus key bench contributors for men's basketball this year? This is a tougher question than I thought to answer. I think you got to start with Frankie Collins. I would guess he's the starter at point guard. You still have Tyler Tanner though, so that's going to be a battle. They're going to. I mean, you would guess they battle it out. I think I would project Frankie Collins to end up starting there. Of course, you've got a couple of guards. Does Duke Miles end up starting? You've got Mike James from NC State. I would guess Tyler Harris from Washington is probably your two there. Obviously, you've got Tyler Nickel, who would probably slide in there at the 3. You've got of course A.K. Okereke, but you've got Devin McLaughlin as well. I would put McLaughlin at the 4, and then I would give the edge at the 5 to Jalen Washington, at least right now. Mason Nicholson coming off the bench, but so you're looking at Collins, Harris, Nickel, McLaughlin, and Washington. And you've got Nicholson off the bench, James off the bench, Okereke off the bench, Duke Miles off the bench, not to mention some of the freshmen. But look, that's pretty strong. And I don't know if that's going to be the 5, but that's a pretty strong roster right now.
That's pretty funny because that's what I've written down. Did you cheat? Did you look at my notes?
I didn't cheat. So a lot of times I write stuff down, but I just went right off the dome there.
I've got the same starting 5. The only one I'm not sure of is whether it be Harris or Miles at the 2. And then I got Tyler Tanner, of course, James, Okereke, and Nicholson. And then our friend from Friends, Chandler Bing, he will be the 11th guy along with Darius Vines. Those would be your 12 guys, I think, that you go to war with.
Yeah, long and athletic. That's what I'll say about the basketball roster so far. Let's see here. Vandy men, can you explain the difference between a soft commit and a hard one, and when a commit is final and a player can't decommit? This is a question of the decade here, especially in the NIL era. A soft commit is you've told the coach that you're coming. You've agreed to something verbally. A hard one, I don't even know, Luke.
Well, a hard thing is when you cancel all your other visits and you say you're going to Vanderbilt. Let's for an example. That's when tampering takes place, in my opinion. When you hard commit somewhere but you haven't enrolled in school, someone can still contact you and say, "Hey, man, I know they gave you $500,000. We're going to give you $650. You want to come here?" So I think that's what a hard commit is. But they still are available to be cherry picked.
Okay, there you go. I knew you'd be able to answer that one. Let's see here. I think that's it from the mailbag. See if we got any. I think that's it from the chat. Luke, I want to give you the chance to basically outline your expectations here for the baseball postseason. A big series this weekend against Kentucky, and then you got the SEC tournament that probably won't really end up mattering for this team unless you lose the series this weekend. You'll probably need to get a couple in Hoover, but you'll be hosting a regional. You'll probably be hosting a super, and the path to Omaha goes through Nashville. That you can't ask for much more. No,
you've put yourself in a great situation. Now you've got to finish the deal. You've got one weekend left. You just came off an emotional high by winning the series in Knoxville. But you've got to come out and win another 2 games to assure yourself of all what you just spoke of. The worst case scenario, if you get swept at home, you're still going to host a regional, I think. But you may need to go win a game or 2 in the SEC tournament to solidify that. But I still think, Kentucky is not a good matchup for us because they're a mirror image of what we do. They don't hit a lot of home runs or haven't to this point, but they steal bases like we do. So defensively, we're one of the best defensive teams in the league. We have to be this weekend as well to get out of there with a series win.
By the way, on the board on Twitter, the Tim Corbin detractors have been pretty quiet here in the last few days. Also in the portal, they've been doing some work the last couple months. They brought in Max Jensen from Cornell, an all Ivy League guy, and then Jacob Faulkner from Princeton, a sidewinder pitcher, kind of a Connor Fennell type guy, but even more of a sidewinder guy. So I'd say that the future is bright for Vanderbilt baseball, and not to mention what you did over the weekend was an absolute statement to go into Knoxville and get the win. It'll continue this weekend, hopefully, for the Vandy boys, Thursday through Saturday series against Kentucky. We'll see what happens in Hoover, and then we'll see what happens on Selection Monday here in a couple weeks. So fun times for the Vanderbilt baseball program. But Luke, appreciate you hopping on. Appreciate everybody hopping in here today. We'll have more coverage coming up throughout the weekend with the series at home against Kentucky. This podcast has always been free. We plan for it to stay that way. Give us a review, 5-star rating. That helps us get noticed. Like this video on YouTube. Go subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. Also subscribe to Vandy247.com. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you again soon with more episodes of the Vandy 24/7 podcast.